Hello everyone, today we're going to make a reaction to Geography Now, Argentina. So yes, I do have a heritage from Argentina. I'm half South American. And the thumbnail will be the flag. And let's begin the video. Okay,
Our
alright
first
then.
South American country. This is the land
The second
of
South
silver
American
and
country I'll be
kindness.
reacting to.
Welcome to Argentina.
Alright then, tomorrow's China, so let's learn about.
We'll explain more
Okay,
about that silver
alright
stuff
then.
later, but first, you know the drill. Let's
Alright
talk
then.
about the flag.
Alright then.
The
Here's the
Argentinian
flag.
flag has
Alright then.
equally long, tall, white and blue stripes.
Alright
And it's
then.
interesting because there technically isn't an official meaning to these colors. Many will say that it resembles the sky with blue and the white clouds. However, many historians will tell you that it's colored that way to represent loyalty towards the House of Bourbon. In the center is the Sun of May emblem. Historians accredit this emblem to representing the Incan design of the sun god Inti. All right, that was fun. Now let's talk about Argentina's location and borders in political geography.
Okay, political geography.
Argentina is
Alright
located
then.
on the bottom part of the
The
South
second
American
largest
continent,
South
formed by
American
5 other
country.
countries and the Atlantic to the east. It's divided into 23 separate provinces and the autonomous capital city of Buenos Aires. Argentina's borders are pretty
Alright
simple,
then.
except for that one island called Isla Martin Garcia that lies in Uruguayan waters and is kind of shared by both countries. Otherwise, many of Argentina's borders are actually just natural land barriers, such as the Andes Mountains in the west by Chile, and in the Misiones province, the Rio Parana, Iguazu, and San Antonio rivers, and the Uruguay River for Uruguay and Brazil. Which, by the way, gives Argentina a very distinguishable panhandle, kind of like Afghanistan that we studied a few weeks ago. You can even see it from space. Due to the fact that the land is less cultivated and thanks to natural river borders, it has a more lush green appearance that sticks out in contrast to its neighbor nations. But then you get the arbitrary subtle borders over flat land and hills, kind of like the ones by Bolivia, sometimes marked boldly and sometimes virtually invisible. Where things get really complicated though is in the south, more specifically the furthest south. Tierra del Fuego, or the Land of Fire, which is pretty ironic considering that it's actually one of the coldest places in all of Argentina, was named after the fires that Magellan saw the native tribes using on the land when he discovered the area in the 16th century. Anyway, it's the smallest province in all of Argentina, and it's actually an island that they share with Chile. And they kind of have like a who can claim the bottom of the world competition when it comes to this territory. On this island, Argentina has a population that far surpasses Chile's by about 19 times. And for a while, had the world's southernmost city, Ushuaia, established in 1884. However, Chile didn't back down from the fight, and in the 1950s, built a small little establishment just a few miles south across the Beagle Channel named Puerto Williams, or Cabo de Hornos, named after the Cape Horn, and hence, with a population slightly over 3,000 and even their own little airport, Chile just barely beat Argentina in having the world's most southern town. But where things get even more complicated are these islands right here. Now, if you ask an Argentine, they'll tell you that these islands are called the Islas Malvinas. They totally belong to Argentina, no questions about it, end of story. They're so serious about it that they even named an entire stadium and an airport after the islands to reflect the sovereign claim that they have over the islands. If you ask a British person, they'll tell you that these islands are a collectivity of islands made up of the Falkland Islands in the west, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands, not to be confused with the Sandwich Islands, which was the name originally given to the Hawaiian Islands. Argentina claims that after gaining independence from Spain in 1816, the islands were given to them from the Spanish Empire, and the British came in 1830 and forcibly pushed out the Argentines that had settled there and barred them from ever coming back. However, the British claimed that they were the ones that discovered the islands in the 17th century, even though technically the French were the first ones to actually colonize the island. And either way, they have a permanent population of about 3,000 people that live on the islands that are British nationals that were born and raised on the islands. Eventually, tensions rose and they went to war over the islands in 1982. Long story short, the UK was able to fight off the Argentine troops and hold on to the islands, although Argentina still doesn't recognize the UK's sovereign claim. It's kind of funny though, because in 2009, former UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown actually met up with Argentine President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, and when it came to the Falkland Island thing, they just kind of awkwardly said they wouldn't talk about it. Well, that was a lot of information. Now let's talk about what the land actually looks like. Argentina is one of the most diverse countries in terms of landscape. In almost every corner, you see something that is completely different from the opposite corner that you were just at. In the north by Brazil and Paraguay, you can find rainforests and lush, humid tropic zones. In the interior and Midwest,
I was
you
going
find
to
flat
say, there's
pampas,
something else I
farmlands, and
want.
hills. In the west by Chile, you find the mountains, the highest point being Mount
Argentine people
Aconcagua,
was there,
which, by
born
the way,
there
is the highest
on
mountain in all of South America. In the east by
Buenos
the
Aires
Atlantic,
in
you can find nice coastal
1931.
beaches. A little bit further south, you can find ranches
Alright
and
then.
mineral mines.
This
And a little
is
bit further south from
interesting.
that, you can find cold and chilly rocky deserts and cacti in the Patagonia region
This is
and petrified wood forests such as the one in
okay. Let's not
Che. If
get
you go even
further to
further
the
south
Falkland
into the end
Islands.
of the
Let's not
Patagonia
talk
region, you will
about it.
find glaciers and
So,
ice. This is the coldest part of Argentina.
uh,
It's kind of interesting though because the south part of South America
uh,
has what you would probably call a reverse double rain
then,
shadow effect, in which wind currents cause the
alright
moisture
then,
to stay in the north part of Argentina, making the north part of Chile a
alright
desert,
then,
and the complete opposite in the
uh,
south, in which Argentina becomes a
alright
desert
then.
and Chile has a lush
Chile, I
green
will do it
interior.
in
Kind of
September
interesting how
because
that
I will
happens.
continue
Funny
rest
story,
of
Argentina was
South
actually originally
Americans
colonized
in
because the settlers thought that
South
the land would
American
be rich
countries
in
in.
silver, hence where Argentina gets its name, the Latin word argentum, which means silver. However, in a weird turn of events, Argentina was actually rich in almost every single mineral except silver. Zinc, copper, and lead can be found in various mines all over. However, Argentina is especially rich in boron, making Argentina the third largest boron producer in the world after Turkey and the US. Hope I haven't boroned you yet with that. Okay, that was terrible. Let's just.
Alright
Here's the
then,
demographics.
let's learn about demographics.
Argentina has a
Alright
population of about 41 million people, or roughly the
then,
same as the country of Sudan. The
alright then,
Argentinians have a saying: "Los argentinos
hola,
descienden de los
gracias,
barcos," or "the Argentines are descended from the boats," meaning that Argentina is almost completely and entirely a country of immigrants. Argentina can actually disputably be considered as the whitest country in all of South America. It's kind of hard to distinguish the specific percentages, though, because many Argentine census reports don't really factor in race too often. But even the most conservative
Okay,
estimates
alright
put
then.
Argentina at somewhere around 85 to
As far as
95% European.
European,
Believe it or not, about half of the Argentinian population is Italian, or at least partial Italian in their descent. Floods of people from Italy immigrated in the 19th and 20th centuries to avoid economic turmoil in the mother country and saw Argentina as a way to rebuild their lives. Spanish, of course, plays into that mix as well,
Germany
and about
were
17%
there
of the
too.
people identify as French and about 8% German, with the remaining European groups coming from a slew of countries like Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, and so on. In fact, interestingly enough, if you go to the Chubut province in the south, you can actually find a town of about 50,000 Welsh people called Uladva Gymraeg. A good portion of these people are actually fluent in Welsh, making Argentina one of the few places in the world where you can actually find a genuine Welsh community with instituted facilities that speak Welsh as a main language. Things get a little fuzzy though when it comes to
Argentina's official
nations.
language
Although
is
people who
Spain,
identify as
Finnish,
full-blooded
and they drive on the
Amerindian
right side
only
of the
make up
road.
about 2% of the population, about 9% of the population identify as mestizo, or mixed between Amerindian and European. However, a recent study by geneticist Daniel Florach has theorized that over half of the entire population of Argentina probably has at least one ancestor that was Amerindian. Argentina actually used to have a surprisingly large black population, especially during the colonial days, and at one point during Spanish colonization, blacks actually made up a third of the entire population. However, after independence, the population of blacks sharply declined due to a number of factors, such as epidemics, anti-African
Let's not
legislation in
talk
the early
about
years, and many of them emigrated to more African-friendly nations like Paraguay and Brazil. Today, they make up less than 1% of the entire population. However, they have definitely left their mark on Argentine culture with contributions to art and music, and arguably the inception of the tango. When it comes to culture, Argentina has a very defined and nationalistic approach to how they operate and view in life. They like to keep things classy, but in their own Argentinian way, distinct from the European way. The last thing an Argentinian would want to hear you say is, "You are so Spanish." Argentina also has a huge wine culture, as they are the fifth largest producer of wine in the world, and they're very heavy on soccer, or football, and basketball, with an impressive amount of
famous
players already
person is
having been
also
drafted in the NBA,
Messi
such as my
and
favorite,
the
Andres
rival
Lucioni. Speaking of
Argentina and
international
Brazil are
trade-offs, let's
rivals
talk
in
about
World
Argentina's
Cup
friends.
football. Argentina won in
In order to
2022.
understand
Okay,
how
let's learn
Argentina
about
works
France.
diplomatically,
Argentina
you
won
kind of
in
have to
2022
understand its
World Cup,
history.
but they lost
Since
to
its
Spain.
independence, Argentina has gone through a
Alright
lot
then.
of crazy times. To make things short,
Alright then.
Argentina was part of the
Alright
Spanish
then.
Empire as well as many
Alright
of the
then.
neighbor nations. However, when an empire collapses, guess what happens? Internal conflict. In post-colonial independent times, Argentina has had wars and battles with every single one of her neighbor nations except for Uruguay. Today, Argentina gets along pretty well with her siblings, even though she adopted different trade policies from many of them. Now, when it comes to Spain, Argentina definitely does not have post-colonial Stockholm syndrome. Now, granted, Argentines do love Spanish people, they just don't like the Spanish government. However, when it comes to their best friends,
Alright
Argentina
then.
might probably consider Uruguay and Italy their best friends.
Uruguay
Uruguay has a
and
very similar
Italy.
demographic and culture to the
Alright then.
Argentines, and they have been very close for as long as their country's conceptions. Some might even argue that Uruguay is kind of like the cute little sidekick of Argentina. And of course, Italy is definitely a huge player in the Argentinian clique. Not only do over half of the people in Argentina identify with Italy ethnically, but many of the major
Messi
and
has
most
the
important
Italian
companies in Argentina are Italian-based, such as
side,
Techint, Iveco, Pirelli, and Telecom. In conclusion,
and
Argentina might not
Fiats are
exactly be the
common in
country of
their
silver that it was
cars,
originally thought to
and
be, but the spirit
Renaults
of
are
people with
also
their fierce
popular
culture
there.
and passion definitely make them look
Alright
forward.
then,
Stay tuned. Armenia is coming
goodbye.
up next.